From the time I was first interested in antiques and eventually ended up becoming a full-time dealer and an auctioneer back in the 70s, I was always attracted to carving, wood carving in particular, stone carvings, objects that were made with sharp implements and chisels and so forth, how they did it, because it's something I can't do, and I've never been handy with things. So when I see somebody who's a stupendous carver or a stupendous painter, I sit in awe and I go, wow, I wish I could do that. But I can certainly appreciate it, and it's fun to enjoy. And one of the things that I realized a number of years ago when my focus really shifted heavily into Asia and Chinese works of art and some Middle Eastern too, was the quality of the carving and how underappreciated much of it is. There's a lot of great carvings that were done throughout China's history, and some of it is, of course, very rare and valuable, historic pieces, Buddhas and all that. But there's a massive other market of things that were carved by artists in different areas who just had an impulse. They wanted to do it. It was considered to be sort of a scholarly thing to get involved in, so a lot of people, I guess, did that. Making objects for, well, scholars' table objects is a classic example. Many of them are carved. And over the years, I've bought a number of them, and I'm going to show you some of the pieces, because some of you asked, what do I collect? I collect a lot of things after 40 years. I have little collections of many, many, many things. And one of them, though, is carvings, and that's why I always mention them in my videos. When I see a really nice wooden carving coming up on eBay or on live auctioneers, I'm always pointing it out, saying that's a good carving. And some of you I know have participated and chased them down and bought them and been happy with them. And some of you are probably wondering, what's he talking about? Why is he interested in carvings? And I'm going to talk a little bit about a few pieces I have and why I find them interesting. And starting with this wooden box. It looks familiar to some of you, I'm sure, because I did a video on it a number of probably 8 months or a year ago or something, during COVID, when we were talking about these things, things that I had. I wanted to find interesting videos, so forth, for that time period for folks to keep them entertained. And I talked about this box. And this box is made of sandalwood, and it was carved in China around 1800 to 1820, and it was made for export. This is an export piece. In Chinese export are pieces that were made, it's referred to as Chinese export or China trade sometimes. And these are objects that were made in China to satisfy the interests of foreign traders that were coming in and out of the country and wanted to take something home to enjoy. And this is something that somebody bought. And I got it from the Harrishoff family through a picker. A dealer friend of mine had, back in the 80s, had gone out to the estate where they were having a sale in the town of Marblehead. And Mr. Harrishoff was a very famous, the end of a very famous long line of yacht designers. And heavily tied to the maritime trade. And it was no surprising that this box came out of that house. And it is amazingly well carved. Here's just a shot of the detail to refresh your memory. But what's really fun about this is that they not only carved them in beautiful sandalwood like this, so this box is in pretty much perfect condition, but they also carved them in ivory. And above is an ivory example of the same type of box, made from probably Indian elephant ivory. Same general impulse, big flat panels with nice deep relief carving going into them, depicting Chinese figures in domestic scenes and so forth. There's that one, and there's that one. And the warmness of the wood here really shows through the bamboo trees and so forth, and very, very meticulous. And you always keep in mind that these have to be done flawlessly, because if you make a mistake, you can't fix it. You can't put back the piece you accidentally cut out. And there are many of these cartouches on these boxes. In addition to, if you look, you'll see there was this idea of putting floral borders in. Here's the floral border on this one. There's the floral border on that one. And it was a pattern that turned up. The ivory box also came from a home of tied to the China trade. It was actually a family here in Gloucester who had roots going back to Salem and in Gloucester. They were a maritime family. And this was something that they were getting rid of at one point out of their collection of things. And I bought it, and I bought a number of other things. And one of them is a very unusual ivory card case. And so forth. And but this is just a classic example of very fine early 19th century carving. And I absolutely love this stuff. And other things that I've picked up over the years that you might find, I'm going to move this out of the way so we don't damage it. and move this out of the way so we don't damage it. If I damage things, I get in hot water. Here are some other things. And now all these things, like I said, they're not expensive. These are things that people can afford to buy. We'll start with this, a bamboo brush pot. It's a wonderful little brush pot. I bought it from a very nice dealer in England. It is probably late Ming, beautifully done. And he had this on eBay. And it's got a beautiful surface on it. Really, really beautiful patina. And here's what the bottom of them looks like. That's what all bamboo brush pots should look like. This. If you have a brush pot made of wood and you're not sure if it's bamboo or not, just flip it over. And if it has this membrane on the bottom here, it's a bamboo section. That's what they carve them out of. This one is very, very light. Weighs almost nothing because it's so old. It's completely dried out, and it's supposed to be. And you have these boatmen in it going along, meticulously carved, beautiful waves done all the way through it, and it's reticulated with this willow tree. Something I've owned this now for probably 15 or 20 years, I guess. Really, really like it a lot. And then I have several of these brush pots, so I'm going to show you a couple of them. Is this one? This is one I bought from a friend of mine, another dealer over in England that came across it. And it's a Republic period example. But the low relief carving on it is quite exceptional. Really, really quite exceptional. I got it from a guy named William Martindale. He was a young dealer at the time, and he came up with this, and I said, I'd love to buy that, and I did. And the workmanship on this is just outstanding all the way around. It's got a little signature on it, but a whole different style of carving compared to the previous example. And those changes in styles I always find interesting. And this is a nice one. There's the bottom of it and so forth. And it's got this sort of cut out irregular top, which you didn't typically see on older brush pots, like the tops of mountains coming up and going through it. All right, and then rolling along over to this soapstone. Soapstone is sort of the training wheels stone material for future jade carvers. In many cases, they start out carving soapstone and then they move their way up to jade. And this came out of a collection up in Maine, an auction house that I used to go to all the time. They're no longer there, but very, very nice quality thing. Beautifully incised all the way through. Nice old finish on it. Get my finger out of the picture. We'll be in good shape. Here's the back of it. Nicely carved. It's got an old break in the middle. I have to tell you that. I didn't care. I bought it with the break. And I'll be honest, I think what did this end up costing me? $60, I think, or $50. And it had the break in it, but I didn't care because the workmanship was good. I'm never discouraged from buying something because it has a little bit of damage to it. If the price is in accordance with that, if it takes that into account, you shouldn't turn down things that are fascinatingly beautiful just because they've had an accident somewhere along the line. This is a nice one. It's an probably early 19th or late 18th century example. Absolutely love it. Absolutely loved it. It's been in my bookcase now ever since I acquired it. And then over to this, schist carving with gold lacquer on it of Daruma. This is a really, really fine carving. I bought this many years ago in the town of Essex out of a little group shop. And there was a lady in there who was selling things. I don't know where she was getting this stuff, but she came up with some of the most phenomenal Chinese smalls I've seen in years. Many of them I sold, did very well with. She was once a week, she'd come in and restock the shelf, but I would walk over once a week and buy all of it. But this was one piece that I bought, and I actually gave it to my wife because I just thought it was such a lovely, lovely, lovely carving. And it's a very old one. Probably predates the 10th century. Wonderful detail, beautiful beard on it, and so forth. This is the emaciated Buddha. I shouldn't say it's not Daruma, really. It's the emaciated Buddha. And but a wonderful example. It had a little break in the stone off the bottom, but I didn't care. The lacquer and the work on it was just so outstanding. And you see a lot of these they were done during the Yuan dynasty. And this is one that we've had for many, many years. And we've just liked that. He's our little household friend. And then, of course, you had things like this that were done. Now, this wasn't carved out of bronze, but it was a mold that was made and then a carved mold and then cast in bronze. And this is incredibly heavy. And this is an acolyte figure. It would flank, there'd be two of these, and it would flank each side of a larger Buddha, seated Buddha. It is very, very heavy. It's phenomenally heavy. As you can see how thickly done it is on the bottom. It's black and gold lacquered. And I actually got this. I found this on eBay. A guy who's a scrap metal dealer in Las Vegas had it. And he just put it up saying a metal figure, very heavy. And I got in touch with him and asked him a couple of questions and bought it. And it's been here ever since. It's a nice one. It's pretty good size. There's my hand next to it. It's about probably 5 inches tall. It's in very nice condition. He didn't have the other one, and he didn't have the big Buddha that was sitting with. So this obviously got broken off at some point, but it's a great bit. It's a really, really great little bit. Again, carved, a mold carved, and then cast. And you see the same in porcelain. Here's a Ming Celadon bowl from the early 15th century. Again, the porcelain was carved. This is not molded. This is a carved design in the paste. Beautifully done, lovely bowl, nice color, and owned that for many years. And then other things that are here, rock crystal. I like rock crystals, and the Chinese were very good at carving rock crystal. And this is one of a hawk holding a twig in his mouth with a peach on the end of it. It's beautifully done. It's probably late Qing. It's not a terribly, terribly early one, but very nice quality all the way around. Beautiful quality. Very, very nice. And I bought this from a gentleman in the Midwest. There's the bottom of it and so forth. It's got a tiny nick out of it. I don't care because it's beautifully carved and very high quality quartz. All right. And then this, another soapstone figure. And this one is extremely common type. I think they're wonderful. And the reason I bought this one is that on it has an incised landscape design that goes around mountains and so forth all around it. I hope this goes into focus. There we go. This beautiful mountain landscape. You roll it around, and it's got a big panel on it with poems about the mountains and the flowers and all this other stuff. There's the top of it. This was not expensive. This was a very, very inexpensive little piece of carving. I think it was around $25 or something. It was probably made during the late Qing or Republic period, but very nice. Very nice, very collectible. It's something you can appreciate. The color is pleasing. It's got nice weight to it. It's hollowed out inside and all that. It's a good little carving. All right. And then you have other ivory carvings like this, like a giant snuff bottle made of ivory. This is, again, sort of a yellowish tone, so it's probably Indian ivory. Very finely carved, beautifully done, made during the first half of the 19th century, probably. It could be late 18th, but I suspect it's more likely to be from the Daoguan, maybe the late Qing period. But very fine workmanship. And again, today you can often, when you find these, I've had people give me ivory because they can't sell it legally and they don't know quite what to do with it. Though that does seem to be getting loosened up in Europe. I noticed from some recent sales over there's a lot of auctions that have ivory listed flat out as ivory. But this was a particularly nice one. A very, very nice little example. All right, and then you have this. Many of you have seen these before. It's a little pen holder. It's missing its base, but I bought this at an auction because it's fully inscribed down the side. And there's the front of it. It's all fully reticulated. Beautiful little carving. And the reticulation isn't broken anywhere. And there's another panel of calligraphy on the other side. And there it is down this side. And this yellow area is just some discoloration in the ivory itself. It's not, we didn't spill something on it. It's just a little discoloration. But very lovely, lovely bit of work in here. And then you have this Japanese ivory, which is a fairly recent edition that somebody gave me. They said, if you can sell it, sell it. If not, I don't want it back. And basically is how they left it. And this is a lovely example, but unfortunately, you can't sell them around here. But I accepted it as a nice gift from the lady, and because we'd done a lot of work for her and things, and I was thrilled to have it, thrilled to get it. And if the law ever changed, maybe someday we will sell this. But for now, we really can't without risking going to jail. but this was done during the end of the latter half of the 19th century. Beautifully done. And of course, before these became illegal, this, 20 years ago when they could sell these, and the Japanese market was fairly strong, an ivory like that, because it's big, that's my hand, it's a fairly tall one, it's about 9 or so inches tall, 10 inches tall, would have sold for probably $1,500 or $2,000. Today, it has no market. All right. And what other things do we have here? Oh, the ivory, another ivory piece of ivory box. Again, not a big deal. But what's really unusual about this ivory box, it came from the same house that had the ivory box we looked at before, the large table box. But it has a label in it, and from Chongqing. And the Chongqing label is a very, very rare label. There's in the Crossman's book on the China trade, he could only find one example of this label still with its ivory case. And this is one, and as I said, this was brought back by that China trade family from Salem and here in Gloucester. I got this from them, and I kept it, of course, with the box. Very, very rare, and nice condition. And then other carvings might include this. And some of you have seen this before. We talked about it because I had bought this a few years ago, and it's a piece of Peking glass, a monstrous piece of Peking glass. It's very heavy, very thick, with these relief work chimeras on it in the form of a bai disc. There's the bottom of it. And what these were was that during the Ming Dynasty, they made these bai discs and they carved chimeras into the top of them, often out of jade. And this is a very, very large one. It's about 8 inches or 9 inches in diameter, meticulously carved glass, beautifully done, and then gilded. And as I said to them, when I did the first video on this, I was always trying to find another example. And I've been looking and looking and looking and haven't seen another one like it. It was broken. I didn't care. I bought it on eBay for, I think I paid $12 for it, plus shipping, because it was broken and nobody wanted it. And one of the great things about things that have a little bit of damage to them is that once in a while, they come out of the market and nobody gives it a second look or really contemplates what the object is because it's damaged. All right. But if you're a true collector and you really like to own wonderful things, this is something worth looking into. All right. Finding things like this. Rare thing, interesting, and fun to own. All right. And I can't tell you how many people that know a bit about Chinese art that have been to my house since and have said, where did you get that? What is that? And they've never seen anything like it. And I've shared pictures of it with a number of pretty knowledgeable people, and nobody can find anything like it since. And I wouldn't have, and if I'd been afraid of a little bit of damage, I would have never bought it and found out that it's an extremely unusual piece. And that's the fun part of collecting. That's what it's about. If you're doing it for the money, that's a different thing. If you're doing it only for the money. But if you really enjoy the art and you enjoy the quality of this kind of work and the sculptural aspect of it, we had a little pause there. Sorry about that. I want to show you a couple of other pieces, things that we've owned, like wooden statues. All right, and here's one of Tigre. A very nice dark wood carving. I've owned this for many, many years, and it's inlaid with silver wire around the back. You can see some up here around the top, but very, very nice quality carving, very, very fine carving. And this is a good size one. It's about 1 foot tall. It's in quite good shape. It's got a couple of nicks on the fingertips, that kind of thing. But overall, it's a beautiful piece of work. And here's the back of it. All right. And there's that silver wire all through here. You can see it. And I think this, if you're looking at things like this, you can find these often on the internet and at small local estate sales, maybe for $100 or $75, that kind of thing. So it's a great category to get interested in because that's a really fine thing. Beautiful face. And then there are other examples like it. This is one for good luck for this was another one I gave my wife because she liked it so much. It's a great big one. Here it is. And this came from a family of missionaries that were in China at the turn of the last century. And it was in a house in New Hampshire. And we went up there many, many years ago. This was probably 20 years ago. And they had 3 trunks full of silk robes amazing silk robes in absolutely perfect condition. They hadn't been out of the trunk since the family returned from China in the 1930s. They fled during the rape of Nanjing, when the Japanese were invading and murdering the Chinese. They left before something happened to their children. They came back to America. But this was one of the things they brought back. It's absolutely a beautiful carving. We've had it in the house here ever since, and as you can see, it's fairly large. It's got it's the lucky Buddha, the cash Buddha, with all these coins hanging off them. Love the facial expression on them. That's the reason I kept it. I could have sold it, but I like that a lot. That's a great thing. And at the time, when we first got this, what was this thing worth? Might have been worth $300 or $400, something like that. Not a huge amount of money, but an absolutely wonderful piece of sculpture. And that's the way it is. And the last thing I want to talk about, well, I didn't talk about the little ivory handle, but you've seen enough ivory, I suppose. It's an ivory cane handle that was put onto a magnifying glass, came out of a house in Marblehead, Massachusetts, that we had worked on in an estate, and we bought it. And this. I'm doing it from here because this thing is enormous. This is a root carving. Here you've seen these Chinese root carvings like this. Those are his feet. This is a big one. And there's his face. And I bought this at an auction down in New York from the Keno's, Lee Keno, and Leslie. It was the Keno's, the Keno auction house. Anyway, they've known them for years, nice people. And they had this at an auction. And it was wonderful, beautiful face, beautifully carved, glass eyes, late Qing, and made out of this spectacular chunk of burl wood. Just absolutely great. And the lovely Chinese shoes, chip carved onto the bottom and so forth. Good patina on it. It's never been sanded or messed around with, and is absolutely charming. Absolutely charming. And and I think I paid, I don't know, $150 or $200 for that. So these are not expensive things. That's the point. The point is you don't have to buy terribly expensive things to own very interesting things. You just buy what pleases you. And if they cost a little money and you can afford it, you buy them. And if they cost too much, you can at least appreciate them. But with carvings like this, these are the kinds of things, if you go through your head and add up what I probably paid for all of this, it's not a terribly expensive endeavor. The Celadon bowl has some value, and the Ming brush pot was sort of expensive. But the rest of the pieces were very modest, many of them under $50. And here they are. All right. So that's it. All right. I hope you found it interesting. Just a corner of the things that we collect around here. And we'll do some more of these. You can see it sitting on a very nice Central Asian or sari bag face, they call them. I've owned this since the early 1980s. Bought it from Arthur Mahfouz's father, who's a famous rug dealer in Boston for many, many years. They owned Araby Rug. And I used to go in there on Saturdays when Mr. Mahfouz was still alive. He was a great old guy. At that point in his life, he wasn't well. I think he was diabetic. He was in a wheelchair. But he was always welcoming and glad people came into his store. It was right across from the Prudential Center. But it was an old-fashioned rug shop. And he had, I think, probably the best rugs in Boston at the time. He got all the great bee jars and Chinese rugs and textiles, the occasional Chinese robe. And he was a lovely man. And one afternoon I went in there and he said, well, if you're looking for an interesting one of those bags you like, and he had trunks in the back of his store, and he said, go back into the store and go into the middle trunk and you'll see it. And he had just bought this out of an estate that week. And it's an early 19th century piece. They're very rare. And in 1982, I think I paid about $400 for it, something like that, which adjusted to inflation was probably quite a bit of money. But anyway, I just loved it. It's tomato red and Central Asian and wonderful quality and the tradition and all that. And I have many of those around the house here. But at any rate, this is what we're talking about today, carvings. Maybe someday we'll do one on bag faces and textiles because we have a lot of them. But that sort of covers it. All righty. Have a great week. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. If you like this, leave a comment. Let me know what you think of these. I'm not very good at holding this silly camera, but I hope it does the trick. All right. And have a great week, and we'll be back tomorrow with a regular video. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.